Right. The podcast that uncovers the origin stories of some of the biggest names in sports, media, business, entertainment, and so much more. Nick Durst here, along with Joe Calabrese and Joe. We have a 2-for-1 special for our listeners today.
You ready to make a little I'm right history?
Yes.
So we've had duos on with us in the past. We've had twins on with us. We've had best friends. We've had reality star buddies on with us, but we've never had a couple, and we've never had a true married couple. So gonna make history today. She's currently with the Action Network, formerly of SNY. He's an associate director for the American Cancer Society, and he also is an actor, which I got to research a little bit before the podcast started, and we'll pick his brain a little bit about that in a while. But we got Marino and Steve Cavanaugh. Guys, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. And yes, this is history in the making right now. What's up, guys?
Well, this is history for us too, because I'm pretty sure you guys are doing the first ever joint interview with the two of us, which we're pretty excited about because we've talked about doing stuff like this and we just haven't really gotten a chance to do it.
Super excited to be here. I echo Maria's sentiments. I'm glad we're making history in some way. Hopefully it's a good way.
It's weird to hear you introduce us as like a real married couple. It's like, oh, I guess we are that.
Well, on our show here, we're all about taking trips down memory lane, and we're going to get into everything with your career. But how did the two of you meet?
Oh man, you're gonna leave that to me? You want to take
Well, okay, I'll start, but
it's a long and romantic story.
Yeah, romantic, bittersweet too. So as you mentioned, Joe, Steve's day job is with American Cancer Society, and unfortunately, two of my family members have been stricken with cancer, my mother and my sister. And they were actually at an event that Steve was working. And my sister in particular, who sadly passed in 2020. And that's why I met you guys actually at the Sportscaster Derby, and my charity is Making Strides Against Breast Cancer. But anyway, she kind of eyed Steve from afar and went up to him.
I may have to jump in.
Go ahead. You jump in.
I may have to jump in and tell my side of it.
Okay.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I do a little bit of acting on the side too, especially now, right, with where I was at. But going back like 4 or 5 years when we first became aware of each other and things like that, I had made a pivot. Okay, I was acting full-time TV and film and commercial end of the city, and I just was looking for something more concrete, et cetera, et cetera. And I had always been interested. I had volunteered for nonprofit work in the past, right? And I thought maybe I'll jump into this full-time. I'm a major believer in it, and an opportunity presented itself. So I was working an event at that time. I was actually hosting and emceeing the event. So I was kind of, as you guys know, you're in this landscape too. It's like, it's a little bit hectic. I'm at work. I'm trying to be professional. But Maria's beautiful mother, Paula, who is now my mother-in-law, at the time, she, who was a survivor of cancer, was a speaker at my event. And she was incredibly eloquent. And I was so glad that she did it. And yeah, she was incredible. But afterwards, yeah, her and her late sister Antoinette came up to me and they started like quizzing me and asking me all these questions, and are you single? And I'm like, all right, here we go. Like, where are we going with this? Like, I don't know about you guys, but in those days when I was actually single, I didn't really want to be set up. You know what I mean? I was like, all right, I just didn't really take it seriously. And they're like, but they kept quizzing me. They're like, how tall are you? I'm like, how tall am I? I was like, I'm 6 foot. And they're like, that's good. I'm like, okay, what are we doing? They're like, do you like sports? I'm like, yeah, I played college hoops. They're like, that's great. And I'm like, what is going on? And eventually it came to be, we'd love to introduce you to my sister and my daughter, Maria. And then I blew her off for about a year. And we didn't meet until about a year later.
Well, to be fair, I kind of also blew you off. I think we were both assholes. Can we swear? We were both assholes because we were both like so jaded and so, like, no, that's not real, whatever. Like, I don't know. I just feel like I was like, yeah, okay, well, whatever. And just never even.
It's this goofy thing of like social media, right? In the social media landscape where she's a sportscaster on TV and I'm in indie movies. It's like, this isn't, come on. So I kind of was like, oh, whatever. But
Yeah.
I was aware of her. And then a year later, flash forward, I was actually emceeing another fundraising event for the society. It was an ugly sweater Christmas party in Sussex County, where she's from, and I had no idea she would be there. And there she is, walked in the door, and I was in a Grinch bright green getup, certainly looking my best. And I thought, I literally went into the bathroom and I thought, this is how you're going to meet this gal. That's great. Like, this is life. You know what I mean? How funny is this? But it was wonderful. And I went over and I talked to her and her sisters and had a really nice conversation.
And he told me at the end of the night, I went to say goodbye, and he was like, oh yeah, like maybe we'll get together in the new year. And in my head, I'm like, really? Like, I didn't think he was serious. I was like, I don't know. I was like, I don't know. And then eventually he did follow up and he asked me out in the new year. But I realize we've been rambling now for, I don't know,
That was
how
a
many
long
minutes, but it's kind of a complicated,
I
but
think
also
it's great. I mean, you're
interesting
inspiring
story.
me. I'm married, but I want to set up Joe, but I never have the courage to go up to people and say, what's your height? Do you like sports?
Man.
Are you Italian?
There was about 20 more questions. Yeah, are you Italian?
Which he actually is not. You are not,
0%.
believe it or not. And I am
Yeah.
like 88% Italian or something
But
like
yeah,
that.
it's hard out there, man.
But Joe, let this be a lesson to you, maybe go for it, don't be like us and wait like a year, plus, who knows?
Good advice. The other thing I would take from that is your mother always knows. She just knows instinctually, the intuition. She was very instrumental in setting up you two. But I want to know is I was peeking on the social media channels, right? A couple pictures and videos from your wedding. What was the proposal like, and what was your wedding like?
Okay.
Oh man, that's a whole other story. All right, I'll try not to ramble. No, it was so I had like a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. Right?
That is hysterical because I was literally going to start the story with that same exact sentence.
You want to take it away?
No.
Okay.
Continue. Just remarking.
No, well, it was one of these things where right, I had a couple of different avenues in my head as to what we were going to do. And so I wanted to start the night with dinner and go to a rooftop and maybe view the sunset. And I'm like, if I'm feeling comfortable, maybe we'll pull the move there, whatever it may be, right? And then I had set up, I don't know if you guys have seen these things, and I would highly recommend it. It was actually gorgeous and beautiful. And I knew the one musician who was there. I used from whatever, long story short, I knew him, but it's these candlelit concerts in the city. And they do them all over. And this one happened to be at a cathedral. And it was just a string quartet. But it was beautiful because I'd stumbled across this. I was looking for like something we could go to, right? But not like your typical concert, a little bit more intimate. So it was actually at a church, which was very kind of quiet and subtle. But it was from Bach to the Beatles. So it started out with very classical music, and then it ended with very classic Beatles, which I know that she loves and I'm a huge fan of too. So I thought, all right, that's plan B, right? See if things are, under the candlelight and all that. And I tried, to be honest with you guys, I tried to pop the question at this concert, but we had a guy sit right in front of us in one of the church pews. And I don't know if you've ever, he's moving his head around and making a lot of noise in the pew. And I literally had the ring in my hand, and I just thought, it was in the middle of the encore, and I thought, this is not the right moment.
No,
so
it was not the right moment because not only was he moving around, his chair was going like,
yeah, like like an old like church pew.
And I was going to say too, before that, when we were at dinner, you wanted to go to the rooftop, but the rooftop was closed or whatever. So I think you were like figuring like, okay, that's not gonna work. We'll wait to the concert.
Suddenly it was under construction. So it's just like, how life is funny, right? Like you have these plans, and I'm kind of a hopeless romantic. And I thought, all right, plan A and plan B are out. But the problem is plan C involved all the friends and family showing up at the after party after I had already popped the question. So I had to, in the Uber on the way there,
be like, hold on,
abort, everybody, like wait down the street, get the heck out of there. And so it ended up being again just one of those funny moments in life where we had got in, and I'd reserved a table for 6. And the hostess is like, why are there only 2 of you? And I don't even think you were aware.
I didn't even realize, but I did notice that I did comment on the size of the table. I was like, do you want to see if they have a smaller table? Because it was
and I was like, nah, we're good.
I like the spot. I'm like, all right.
And so anyway, we got in there, and I said, look, I've been trying to do this all day, and I gave a very short but hopefully sweet speech.
Yeah.
and a few people looked, and we got a few claps, and then the friends and family came in after that. But
Yeah.
you know, I was going for plan A or plan B, and it failed. But again, that's life, right? It's just,
Yes.
it's like funny, and to look back on it now is funny. So
Well, I saw Joe is taking a lot of notes there, so that's great. Joe, if we have any questions in the future, you should.
Well, hold on. I would say this though too, because you asked about the wedding, and I would just say that I think through all of everything we've been through, from how we met, our wedding, like I would just say that there is something perfect about imperfection, and that's what you really should expect and hope for, really, because that's kind of the beautiful part in all of it, is like stuff isn't perfect, life is not perfect, far from it. So it's just like, those like imperfect parts of it are what makes it so special, in my opinion. So
amen.
Yeah. But anyway, you guys, like I said, you really opened up the can of worms, asking us all this.
That's what we do here.
Last thing here on your marriage, but where'd you end up spending the honeymoon? Did you have to rent a car? And if you have to rent a car, do you leave it up to Maria with her experience at Enterprise?
Oh, you really
did his research. Yeah.
The LinkedIn profile. Hey, can I just say that before I started working at Enterprise, I was a horrible driver. Like I'm not even gonna front. I was a terrible driver. And then when I started working at Enterprise, it actually made me become a good driver. So I'm happy about that. And also it taught me a lot of like sales and just like, customer service, just like talking to people. So I was like, one of my odd jobs I did in college, in addition to, writing for the New Jersey Herald, local sports, and doing like hyper local TV and radio, and interning at ABC7 and all that. So like, I just had to throw that in there just so it doesn't seem like I was all like Enterprise. But we have a trip coming up that I think we're gonna maybe try to tap into some old Enterprise contacts and rent a car. No, I would say, so the honeymoon, that's another thing. Like it's just funny. Like he understands so much what I do for a living and how important it is to me, because he feels the same way. We have a lot in common, as you'll start to see. But I had to say to him, look, we're getting married on November 3rd. And at the time I was doing sideline reporting for UConn women's basketball, and their home opener was the following week, their season opener actually. And so I just said to him, like, hey, like, just so you know, we're not going to go on the honeymoon right away, because I don't want to miss the season opener. And eventually we went to Dominican Republic. We did like the all-inclusive thing.
Punta Cana. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was all right. Again, perfect in its imperfections, I would say.
Yeah, we had a good time. And we still caught what did we watch when we were there?
Oh, so yeah. So
that was like our best night.
This is what's so fun. Again, this is what I mean, like, about like he gets it. And not only does he get it, he enjoys it. But like UConn was playing, I think Texas. I think it was Texas. And it was a ranked matchup. And like we were at this resort, and of course I couldn't find it on any of the TVs, and he was like, oh, I got you. And we literally just went into our hotel room, and he got it on like our phone. And like there's actually a picture of me you can find on Twitter or Insta or whatever, where like we're just sitting on the couch. I'm just sitting on the couch, and like the phone is just like on the little coffee table, and I'm just like so into this UConn Texas game. And like, and that's part of obviously the beauty in what I do, is that I really do enjoy it. And, so work, it can get complicated. Work and time off it gets a little muddled at times, but for the most part, it's pretty cool.
So Maria, you started mentioning college stuff. You went to Ramapo. Steve, you went to Muhlenberg. You alluded to this earlier, Steve. You kind of were an actor, right, before you were doing the stuff with the American Cancer Society now. So, Maria, you're more than welcome to share some more college stories. Steve, going to college there, what were you originally looking to do? And in terms of internships, again, how'd you guys stay active?
Yeah, I mean, I think she probably has a better internship story. But for me, yeah, Muhlenberg. So I was a legacy student, first and foremost. My father and my uncle both went there in the 70s. So that weighed heavily on my decision in going there. So to take it a step further back, so I did play college basketball. That's Division III, but it's the Centennial Conference. I don't know if you guys know, but it's like Johns Hopkins or Sinus, Franklin and Marshall. Highly competitive conference, also a very highly academic school. So coming out of high school, a pretty decent high school career, and was lucky
He's in the Hall of Fame at his high school. See, he won't say it. I will.
Decent.
Was lucky enough to be recruited by a number of different schools, right? And it was hard. Another connection between Maria and I, were both one of 5 kids. So being the middle child, or the neglected child, as I like to say, no, I'm just kidding. But one of 5, my parents obviously did their best, but we didn't have like a whole lot of money running around for major tuition. So while I got recruited by a number of different schools, Muhlenberg ended up being the choice because I was able to get the most scholarships and the best financial package. And looking back on it, it's one of those things. I know you guys were talking about, college experience and that. I don't regret it at all, because playing college hoops, growing up, I was the 6-foot white boy who wanted to be like Mike, and playing in college was important to me. And so that was a major goal. And I took it extremely seriously. I took my schooling extremely seriously. So it just happened to work out that I would go to Muhlenberg. But there were other avenues that, looking back, when it comes to playing time and different things like that, career, you always wish, it comes down to money. So that's why I ended up going to Muhlenberg. And it was a great experience, I have to say. Very small school, liberal arts school, about 3,500 kids. So almost like a high school. And it was a great experience in the sense that, I was able to meet some of the best friends of my life. Shout out to, my best friend, Evan, who was my roommate.
That's so nice of you.
Yeah, my roommate and teammate for all 4 years. And
I wonder if he's ever gotten shouted out on the air before. Probably never,
not.
So.
I'm gonna have to tag him in this, but no, honestly, it comes down to like lifelong relationships and things like that. So going to Muhlenberg and playing hoops, that was kind of built into, those relationships were built in because we had to spend so much time with each other and going to practice, even though it was Division III, it was a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
And then coming out of school, in terms of like what I wanted to do, I majored in business administration because I thought that was a solid backup at a liberal arts school, in the sense that I did have this evil plan to sort of get back into acting. I'd done some acting as a kid. So I kind of went full force into that afterwards, and just hit the grind. As you guys know, you guys are in media and entertainment, and it's tough out there, and just started auditioning and kind of taking everything that I could possibly get until you would eventually end up landing an agent. And I have one out of the city who I still work with to this day. And yeah, I've gotten a little bit busy, and you got to be careful what you get good at, as I always say, when it comes to my MPO work, which I'm very proud of, but still do it, occasionally when I can. And had a short film that was on the circuit last year that did pretty well and won some awards and things like that. So it's funny how life works out, but I didn't necessarily plan on that. I just kind of went for it, and then made a pivot into MPO about 6-7 years later, which is when I ended up meeting this gal. So
yeah, good thing you made that pivot.
Thank God.
So I would just listening to you talk, it just reminds me of like why Steve and I work. Like, when I met him, I knew he understood the world of sort of me trying to break into broadcasting. And, I used to go to like castings and auditions and things. And, it's a very odd sort of industry. And like, I just knew he kind of, he could relate to the performance aspect of it, to obviously being on camera and all of that. And then at the same time, the fact that he was a college athlete and he was as obsessed with basketball as I was like, this is freaking great. Because like, I just, again, like that like, to use a pun, that marriage, like it made me feel like he just understood. And honestly, like we have so much fun just watching ball. Like, I know that sounds like it's so simple, but, and like, obviously he'll give me his like, film, commentary and things like that, which I love. Like, I'll be like, oh, who directed this? And he'll like go on like a whole thing. And like, I love that. But like, we have so much fun. I mean, I hope you feel the same way. Like, just even most recently, like watching like the NBA playoffs, like that's what we do. And it's so cool. And like, I just think that, in the past, and some media outlets have kind of they've kind of made it seem like it's not the cool thing to like watch sports with your gal. Like, and it's changed a lot, but like traditionally, like, you know, there would be always jokes of like, oh, you know, here comes a wife, here comes a girlfriend, turn the game off. And it's like, we are so like the opposite of that. Like it's something that we enjoy. I don't know. Tell me if I'm going off base here, but
No, you're 100% right. I mean, it's like funny to take it back. You guys are joking like this is history. The first couple to be on, like we talk about this all the time. We enjoy watching sports. We enjoy watching film. We could go to a Broadway show. You know, the two of us are cut from the same cloth in the sense that we have a lot of different interests and a very diversified background. But the connections to what she does and what you guys do, again, you alluded to it too, right? You're not just a sports show. Nobody likes to be put in a box, and I totally agree with that mentality. And I think we both do, and I think we connect over that. But yeah, ball seems to be a through line for sure, and and it gets heated. It's because we don't always agree. You know what I mean? So it's like loser does the dishes kind of thing when it comes to
we played each other in horse once or twice too. And he, you know, occasionally, you know, he'll rebound for me, I'll rebound for him. It's kind of, you know, it's kind of beautiful. Although I also feel like, sorry if we're being so like romantic and cheesy, like I could just also like I could see you guys being like, wow, this is really sweet, but like also I could see some people being like you know, gross, whatever. It's fine. It is
not us.
No,
Steve, you're in tremendous shape.
Yeah.
Were you always in this shape back in college? And were you ever able to dunk? I know we're only 6 foot like me. We're tall, we're not really that tall, but I feel like you got some ups there.
Did he say I was in good shape?
Yes.
I appreciate it, brother. I try.
He repeated it just to like make sure.
No, because I'm actually like battling so many injuries right now, and it's like I appreciate the compliment, but I'm hurting. No, yes. So I've always been a lifelong athlete. Like growing up, I played a lot of different sports, right? And then I just became fixated on basketball. I just became obsessed. And that's a shout out to my older brother because, you know, we grew up like just massive fans of like MJ and the 90s Bulls and just that whole 90s era of basketball. So that's how I fell in love with it. And I was always an athlete, but I was always kind of like a very skinny, wiry kid. I didn't really get into working out in terms of like fitness and weightlifting and stuff like that. Actually, post college, I kind of started in college, but I became obsessed, probably too obsessed, Maria would say. But it's like my therapy a little bit, you know. And then in terms of whether I could dunk or not, very rare, brother. But I can produce witnesses at 6 foot. So I was pretty bouncy for a white boy. I was definitely fast. I did some track and field type stuff back in the day. But I would like, do you guys remember when like Allen Iverson would dunk? And he would kind of do like, he would have to palm the ball and do like the 1-2 step and cut. That was like kind of the only way that I could, you know, get a few in. And never in game though. I attempted one in game and it didn't go well. It ricocheted. Only one. But in practice, yeah, a couple of times. And then it was hard because I felt like I had like more bounce off of 2 feet, if that makes sense. But it's harder to palm the ball and it would always kind of like cut loose or whatever. Yeah. So I don't know. I had to like launch myself.
Well, let's be clear, you know like your game, you're a shooter.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
So, I mean, not that you would necessarily have a lot of opportunities.
I was like, I don't know if you guys remember Jimmer Fredette. Shout out to Jimmer. Yeah, who I actually played once in a tournament. And well, he may have scored on me, but I got a few on him too. But anyway, shout out to Jimmer. I was like a combination of like Jimmer Fredette and Steve Kerr kind of thing. You know, I was like a shooter.
Is Jimmer doing something now? Didn't I send you something?
He's playing for Team USA.
Like, was it 3-on-3 maybe?
Yeah, the 3-on-3.
Jimmer's doing something. He's around.
Good for him because he's my guy. But yeah, I was more of a shooter, off the dribble, mid-range guy.
Jimmer was great. Jimmer Mania was awesome. Joe, I think we got to get Steve on our upcoming fall basketball team. Somebody who's actually good because we are going to have an awful team. We'll have Steve be the ringer. We'll see.
Good, I'm in.
All right. So, like Joe mentioned, you had the college experience. You're grinding out there. And coming out of college, it's always a strange time. There's a lot of uncertainty. And usually we all end up in jobs we don't necessarily like right away for the first job and not really know what we wanted to do. So for both of you, what was your first job?
Okay, first job out of college was it was actually a pretty fun one. So I worked at a resort near where I grew up, and I was kind of like an in-house reporter. It was technically a marketing job, but I would do blogs, I would do like YouTube videos, I would do interviews and stuff. It was cool. There was actually a ski mountain attached to it, so I was actually would do snow reports, and I would like, I'd have my little backpack and I'd whip
Crystal
out my
Springs,
camcorder.
nice
Yeah,
resort.
you
Very
remember the
expensive.
LinkedIn.
I never get there, but I've been in the area a few times.
Well, I grew up right near there. So it was kind of like the perfect first job for me. And I learned, like, I would shoot and edit all my own content. And so that it helped me a lot. And then there was a period there where I was unemployed for a bit and just kind of bouncing around and doing freelance work. But like for me, the turning point of my career was actually working as a hyper local news reporter for a radio station. And I worked there for a year, made $12 an hour, part-time work. But that was what gave me enough experience to be able to put together a demo, which then allowed me to get hired as a sports anchor at Sirius XM. And then the sports thing kind of snowballed from there because I was able to network, and then I was able to start, doing other gigs. And then one thing led to another.
Yeah.
You've done a wide variety.
Man, I've had a lot of odd jobs over the years. It's crazy to think back to that time because it feels like 100 years
By the
ago.
way, I feel like your bicep is like in the way here. You gotta like stay in your lane.
All right. Pretend to shift.
Continue.
But no, I mean, it's crazy to think back, right? That's a long time ago now. But obviously I kind of had these plans to jump into the acting thing and kind of give that a shot. And so with that comes a lot of side jobs and odd jobs. And most people, as you know, right, work in the restaurant industry or bartend and things like that. And I didn't really have an interest in doing that. So I had actually at one point, going back to the hoops thing, I thought maybe I would teach and coach, right? That's kind of a natural avenue. So I had that as sort of a backup plan or in the back of my head as well. So I actually went, and I don't know if you guys know what the praxis tests are. I ended up getting certified to teach business at the high school level, and got some other certifications and things like that. So I figured I'd do the education thing while I was sort of pursuing acting and working my way through that, and eventually getting an agent, et cetera, et cetera. So I spent a lot of time in that world. My sister was a teacher. My mother was a teacher. So I come from an education background, and I just thought it would be good to sort of network in that world as well. And so I kind of bounced around, and I would do, long-term substitute positions. And also I would do what's called paraprofessional work, especially with special needs children, because my youngest brother is actually autistic. He's very high functioning, but I have a lot of experience in that world, and it doesn't really faze me. So was happy to kind of do that work as well. So that was really my first foray, was just kind of doing a lot of different odd jobs in education. But then along the way, I did a little masonry work one summer, which lasted about 3 months before I gave that up. I'm not tough enough to do that. That is some hard work.
What do you pile the bricks and right?
They brought, it's like they gave me a jackhammer.
Hard knock life.
It was like they gave me a jackhammer and they brought me to a brick wall with a yellow X's on everything that needed to be, and they were like, kid, just block, knock all those out. And it was like literally the Great Wall of China. I was like, by the time I get done with this, I'm gonna have a, like a long gray beard. But anyway, you do what you have to do, right? While you're doing those things, like in your early to mid 20s. So that seems like 100 years ago now, but that was kind of my first foray, was being in education. And honestly, I loved it. It was really great being able to work with the kids. And I had a lot of great times. And I would even do like summer school and ESY programs, some of the special needs kids too. So it was like, it just was a better alternative for me than kind of just like being a bar back, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Definitely great to be educating these kids and help them out. When you were a kid, you mentioned before, you were already doing some acting when you were younger. How did you, or maybe your parents, get you that first acting gig?
Well, that goes, so I'm Irish Catholic. I was raised Catholic. And so we grew up doing sort of church theater and community theater. And I was into it, though. I don't want to say that it was just my mother that, kind of got me into it or anything, but we would do sort of these religious plays. And so I kind of started out doing some of that, and some community theater as well as a kid. But then I got away from it because I got really into sports, and really into a lot of other different things, and it was kind of always in the back of my mind. And then I guess I would say I fell in love with it again when I started to get really kind of like into indie film and just movies in general, and just a huge film buff and have a whole lot of respect for that industry. So I was kind of coming at it out of nowhere, and a lot of people saw it that way, I think, once I got out of college. But yeah, just wanted to give it a shot. So.
Well, and wouldn't you credit your dad too with sort of getting you into, you know, showing you the classic films and things like that?
Yeah, my dad was, you know, I grew up watching like Ben-Hur on double VHS, and, On the Waterfront with Brando, or you know, James Dean, Paul Newman, those type of guys. My father was very into.
I'm so lame, but I don't even care. Like, but doesn't he look like? I mean, he's like a Brando. I mean, he is.
A little bit, I see it.
I'm just.
Sure.
They don't have to say. I'm gonna say it. I don't care. I'm blowing you up, but it's true. And
I'm
like,
gonna get killed for this.
and people know. They know. Like, they
Anyway,
know what he has.
I
Going
grew
on.
up on a lot of classics, stuff like that, and it was just kind of something that was always in the back of my head. But yeah, so I did the church plays thing.
Yeah.
When I was a much younger child, theater. And I, by the way, I don't really do much theater anymore. I have tremendous respect for that. I don't think I could carry a tune in terms of musical theater or anything like that. I'm much more built for film. But
Believe it or not, though, I did musical theater back in the
Yeah.
day. So yeah.
What was your big role, your breakout role in musical?
Okay, so I was in 4 musicals. So by the way, back up a second. So I went to Sussex County Community College before transferring to Ramapo. So the shows that I did were there and in high school. And 3 of the 4 musicals, I was just like in the chorus. So I was basically just like background person. But one of them was Grease, and I played Cha-Cha. So, I mean, pretty much a dream role.
Grease
I'm
is my
so
mother's
nerd.
favorite movie.
It's a great
It's a great
film.
movie.
Grease is classic.
Absolutely, I agree.
Oh,
man, we probably thrown that on like 7 times.
no, once or twice.
Oh, it's a
We've
classic.
thrown it up. Yeah.
But Cha-Cha, I mean, come on.
No. Zuko.
Anyways,
John Brando over here. What a couple.
Yes. Yes. I mean,
Steve
I'm
is, Steve
biased.
is definitely a Zuko. I see that.
Kaneki. I could see you playing Kaneki.
oh man,
I'm waiting for him to do one of his
both would be
impressions.
fun.
Like, he's probably not going to do it because, oh God, I'm putting you on the spot so much. I'm sorry,
That's all
but
right.
also not sorry. Like, he does really good voices and impressions, and I want him to start like a, you know, TikTok channel or something where he does like all the lines from movies. But
Oh, I don't have the time, brother. You know, that's the problem.
I know. Yeah.
Nick and I actually had somebody who does impressions on with us a couple of episodes ago, Mr.
cool.
Paul LaDuca
Sick.
from Canada. So maybe we lick you guys up. He that's kind of his forte.
Yeah.
Steve, I got a question for you.
Sure,
I went to your IMDb page before we started, right?
oh boy.
I see The Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
You were an extra in Wolf of Wall Street, huh?
Yeah, so it's funny because again, like I have, you know, a whole career in NPO and all that, and I still act when I can, and I don't have enough time to pursue it like I used to. But so that was Wolf of Wall Street, if you recall, that came out in 2013, and I think they shot it in like 2011. It almost took like 2 years actually, 2011 and 2012. So at the time, again, I'm in my early 20s, and I went to I think it was called Actor Fest, or no, Actors Connection, because you maybe have gone there once before too. So anyway, there was this maybe it was Actor Fest in the city in Manhattan, and it's kind of like these things are like a meat market. Like you go and stand in line, and you kind of like do 7 auditions in a day, and you have like a monologue ready or whatever it may be, right? So, you know, something comedic, something dramatic, and it's just like you're one of like, again, 40 white guys standing in a line that all kind of look like me, but they're all better looking, and it's like you know, whatever. So you do these things, and I was standing in line for something. I think it was like for ABC, for like a pilot or something like that. And there was this woman who came up, and she's like, you know, we're shooting a movie. We need extras. We're looking for young Wall Street types. It's a Scorsese movie starring DiCaprio. Are you interested? And at this point, again, like I'm fresh, like I don't think I even had an agent at this point, whatever, right? So I'm just like, yes, like sign me up, whatever. And it's actually the only time that I've ever done extra work, and it was actually an incredible experience because I got lucky. Somebody got sick. Well, sorry to that guy, but there was a special group of actually SAG-AFTRA. And at the time I was not union, so I was non-union, but they really needed somebody to fill in. I don't know if I fit the bill physically. I don't even know how this happened, but this one guy had to drop out, and it was a special group that was working in and around Leo at the time for some of the, like, they needed people that I guess they could trust around Leo and Jonah Hill and all these different things. So it was a really, really interesting experience and a learning experience. And again, like at the time, I'm kind of like a young kid. But you know, I'm barely, you could see me for like a couple of frames.
You
or
can
something
see
like
it though. Like when I
And,
watched the movie and I like paused it and I was like, that's you.
But a funny anecdote that I could tell you about that is being in the group is that, I don't know if you remember, there's a part of the movie where DiCaprio is talking about cocaine, right? He's talking about coke, and he's like, of all the drugs on God's green earth, there's one that's my absolute favorite. And he's saying it as he walks into what's supposed to be Stratton Oakmont, which is like their Wall Street firm. And so those interiors were shot in a different building than the exteriors. So that's why I'm saying it was like a special group. So they took like 6 of us to go do that. And I'm the guy who walks right by Leo as he's saying that. But the problem was the boom mic guy was very short, or at least shorter than me and shorter than Leo. Leo's a big guy, he's like 6'1". And so he's like on his tippy toes with the boom mic, trying to get it over my head. And they told me, they're like, make a beeline for Leo, and I want you to just brush it almost like a screen, you know, like brush right up against them. And because of the boom mic guy, I didn't have enough room, and I'm trying to get as tiny as I could. And when I tell you, you know, when you really make contact with somebody and you're like, oh my God, I rocked Leo. Rocked him. And I didn't mean to.
Just subtle little.
I didn't mean to. And the way that they had it set up, it was really, I'm going on a long string, but him and Scorsese, who would show up with about 13 scarves on, and he's like this big too. They would do one take and go back in a Video Village and watch it. Do another take, go back in so they went back in a Video Village, and I just rocked DiCaprio. And I'm like, I'm gonna get thrown off set. I'm gonna get fired like immediately. And I was like so stressed out. And I think it was the assistant AD came out, and he's like, just go around the guy, go around the sound guy this time,
Like,
you know. So I assumed that DiCaprio was like, I don't know who just rocked me, but you know,
get him there.
yeah, either get him out of here or tell him to go around the boom that guy, or like tell them, I don't know what we did, but we had to switch it around. So that was funny, but interesting experience. It was extra work. It wasn't really, you know, I wasn't featured or anything like that, but it was fun to be in some of the group scenes too. I wasn't in any of the crazy, I'll say this, like, if you've seen the film, some of the really crazy party scenes. Yeah, I was more like when the FBI raided the place and stuff like that, or when they had
I think when you're like on the phone.
Yeah, but like, what's the opening of the stock called? Like an IPO or no? I should.
The opening bell?
Whatever it was. I don't know. I wasn't that scene. I wasn't in any of the really crazy stuff, but I did give Leo a shot. So
yeah.
Great story. Absolutely great story. Thank you for sharing that with us. All right, let's get back on track. American Cancer Society. Steve, how did you begin working there? And how long did it take you to start rising to eventually become an associate director?
It's a great question. So I was probably like 6 or 7 years into kind of like grinding and doing the struggling actor thing, and you know, was working on projects, some of which I was very proud of, and again have brought me lifelong friendships and stuff like that. But you get to a certain point where you're looking for financial security and just security in general, right, at a certain age. So I'd always been interested in getting into NPO in terms of a career, because I had a background in volunteering for nonprofit work. And there was an opportunity that arose at American Cancer Society, or as I call it, ACS. We use a lot of acronyms, but I thought, okay, maybe this is an interesting opportunity to sort of get into this and have, you know, just sort of a secure paycheck and be able to continue to pursue acting, which is what I did for the better part of the first few years. And it's one of those things, I said this earlier, but you got to be careful what you get good at. I'm a very competitive person. I want to do work that I care about. And that's kind of why I wanted to make the pivot in the first place. And I got really into the work. I got really passionate about the work. I have met some of the best people in my life, none better, again, to be cheesy and romantic, than my wife, through the work that I do in nonprofit. And it just became clear that it was something that I was extremely passionate about. So with that comes sort of, how do you climb your way up? And, you know, looking back 4 and 5 years now, I can't honestly tell you that I got into it thinking, okay, I'm going to play Johnny Corporate and sort of climb my way up and try and get promoted and eventually get to where I am now. But along the way, I thought, this is really meaningful and this is bringing me more than I could have ever imagined. And it's only gotten more and more intense as I've done it. And my why for doing the work and helping those that we serve has never been stronger than it is today. And I genuinely mean that. And so with that, it became intentional and it became precise in terms of, the nonprofit world is a little bit different than other, I would say, corporate jobs in terms of like, there's certain pockets of opportunity, I would say, that you have to recognize if you're interested in them in terms of working on different events or climbing a rep, whatever it may be. And so I felt like I was really trying to hone in on identifying those opportunities. And then it just comes down to taking a chance. Honestly, it comes down to saying like, hey, this is a little bit of a risk. This is a little bit of a stretch, but I'm going to go for it. And then to bring it full circle to my current position now, say 5 years later, after jumping into the MPO game and managing our largest breast cancer event in the country, essentially at a Central Park, and being responsible for millions of dollars of revenue that go back to our services and programs and our advocacy on Capitol Hill and our research. And again, it's really a position of servitude. And I really, truly enjoy that. And it does not come without pressure, and it does not come without a spotlight, because if I don't do what I need to do in terms of putting on these events and raising these funds, those people that really need it they can't take advantage of it. So it's a lot of pressure in that sense, but I enjoy that. I wouldn't want to really wake up and do anything else. That may sound cheesy, but it's the honest truth. So it didn't start out as intentional, but it has become that way. And it's not only a pleasure and a privilege, but it's become a duty, if that makes sense.
Steve, you do absolutely wonderful work. Maria, let's get you back involved here, because a lot of Steve lately.
That's okay. That's okay. I like listening to him because normally I'm the one always yapping away on these things. So
Yeah,
it's good for me to shut up for a few.
All right, well, it's your turn to start yapping again. Working your way back through your, let's walk us through here. Getting
Sure.
bigger on-air opportunities. Steve mentioned before that he has an agent, right? So what is your opinion about the whole agent thing in your field, right? Nick and I know how difficult it is trying to break through when it comes to media. So do you think the agent helps? Do you think the agent doesn't help? And again, just going from, opportunity to opportunity, as you're going through your career.
That's a really interesting question. I don't know that anyone has really asked me that in a capacity like this. So I think everybody's a little different. And I think it's important to understand that an agent is not necessarily going to get you a job. An agent has expertise and can help with certain things, but it's ultimately on you, I think, to find opportunities, and you can give your agent leads of things. But I, believe it or not, have not had an agent up until this past year. So I was fortunate enough that I had been contacted directly by SNY, and so I was able to work on that contract. That I had a 4-year contract without paying an agent, which was kind of nice. And then knowing that my contract was going to be coming up, coming toward expiring, I wanted to, at this stage in my career, have someone in my corner to help me navigate that, and to help me, in negotiations. I think that it's super valuable when you can have someone advocating for you and asking all the tough questions that you don't then have to ask. And in particular, when you have really good, strong relationships with people that you work with, to not have to have the uncomfortable conversations with them, to leave that to your agent and let your agent be the one to talk about money and to talk about perks and things of that nature. So I found it very helpful in that regard. And, my current full-time role with Action Network was also a role that I had been pursued prior to actually having an agent by them. But I'm really super glad once again that I did have my agent for that instance, because my agent is Debbie Spander, who founded her own agency, Insight Sports Advisors. And Debbie, again, just advocated for me. And she knows she knows all the contract speak and all the fine print. And she went through everything. So like every detail, just so meticulously. And she was somebody that would, she did all the asks for me. I mean, I was not involved at all in the negotiations. I had no, like, everything to do with the contract. I just left it to her. And that was definitely a luxury. But I would say for people starting out, it's very different, don't even bother getting an agent before you've gotten experience. You need to have your own experiences. You need to have your own, video clips to develop a reel. I would imagine acting similar, like don't even bother, because they can't sell you unless you can sell yourself, really. Like you need to, so I found that, like, I think I had thoughts at points. I had thoughts like, once I was working at Sirius XM, I was working at NBC Sports Radio, I was working at Fantasy Sports Network. Like I was getting bigger jobs, and I started thinking, okay, might be time now to get an agent. I think you have to be a certain point of being established. Like people like students or people that just have graduated from college will reach out to me and say, I'm trying to get an agent. And I'm like, just work on yourself first. And then when you're ready, that agent will hopefully help get you, like, when you're real close, they might help you get that extra, like, little bit, but don't like think you're going to like graduate college and get an agent and you're going to get a job. Like it's such a nuanced, thing. And in broadcasting or entertainment industry, like, it's just not cut and dry, and it's just not straightforward. So, I think everybody's different as far as like, when's the right time to get an agent, but every single job that I've gotten has been through my own network, and my agent in my current, just my current position in my career helped me navigate it, and is now able to help me moving forward. So I'm really grateful for that.
Tremendous story.
That was a long answer.
It was a good answer.
Everybody's journey is different there, so that's awesome stuff there.
Yes.
You mentioned that they're coming to you, these places, which is a great showing of your networking skills and your skill set as well. So SNY, they were looking at you. You're with them. So how startled were you the first time you worked with former right guest Eamon McEnady, and he dropped the "only on SNY" line while you're sitting next to him? Because that's a loud one.
It was. I do remember being like, wow, like that was really loud. Because and sometimes I would like imitate him, like if he was on camera, for instance, and I was like off, I would be in the back going like, only SNY. And no, love it. Like, I have to give him credit. And some people like have their thing that they say, like something signature about them as a broadcaster. And I don't know that I've really done that. I've never really had my own little, like, I never had like a signature phrase or anything like that. So, kudos to him for, establishing that and, becoming known for something, or something that's recognizable, I think is certainly important. But yeah, always good times, working with Eamon, and really everyone I've worked with at SNY.
Yeah, Joe and I are fortunate enough to pretty much have had anybody who's ever worked at SNY on this show. So we're glad to add you to the list. So Maria,
Nice.
with your SNY job, what did you like doing more? Did you like being in studio? Did you like going out in the field reporting on these different events? Did you like doing the UConn stuff? What was your favorite aspect of the role you had there?
Well, so there's two aspects to it, the skills and the content. And in general, I like versatility, and I like doing a variety of things. I don't really like to just do one thing. And so there was beauty in, okay, some nights I'm anchoring, some nights I'm reporting in the field, or, hosting a show. I did a NFL betting show for 4 seasons, which was also another like avenue. But I would say as far as content is concerned, I loved covering UConn women's basketball because, you're talking about one of the, elite programs in all of sports, legendary coach, just so many amazing athletes have come through that program. But on the skill side of it, as a sideline reporter, not necessarily my favorite role. Like I felt I found it very difficult, honestly. And I felt like it didn't come super naturally to me. And I had to work really hard. And I would get like pretty stressed out about just my performance. Which, I definitely think I got better and better at, and I worked at it and became pretty good, but I don't think it's necessarily like what I'm meant to do. But that being said, I do think I'm meant to cover basketball, and more specifically, women's basketball. And, so I love the subject matter.
All right, that's why you're at the Action Network. Nobody covers the WNBA spreads quite like you. So
Oh, I try.
Maria does a great job at Action Network. So same question here for the both of you. We'll start with Steve's answer. Give us a time that you were starstruck by somebody you got to meet through work.
Oh, that's going to be hard for me because I don't really, I've been around a few, I guess, people that you would think be starstruck, not necessarily a thing. Jordan, if Mike walked in the room, that would probably throw me off. Or like, yeah, Mike would throw me off. But I'm trying to think of a specific
both of us, I feel like both of us don't get starstruck that much.
Not that much. It's more of a respect thing, but I'm trying to think of a specific instance where it was, I don't know.
I can tell you, like, when I first started in the industry and I was like a total like newbie, I would definitely get starstruck by like, Michael K or whatever. And then like when we became sort of, knew who each other were, or like whoever, like now it's just funny to look back at like, the different stages. But I actually just thought of a random one.
Okay.
So
all right.
I wouldn't say starstruck is the word, but I don't get nervous too often. But I remember one time being in a scrum with Greg Popovich at like Madison Square Garden. And I just remember thinking to myself, I'm not asking him a question. I'm good. I'm out. Like I'm like I would ask, I have asked like when the Warriors came to play the Knicks, and this is a few years ago now, I asked Steve Kerr a question. Like I'm not shy about, introducing myself and really talking to anybody. But that was one. Pop, I was like, nah, I'm good. Like I'll just chill back here, just like hold the mic.
Yeah, this is one of those things where Maria's gonna have way better answers than me because of what she does for a living. But it's funny to throw it back to the Wolf of Wall Street thing. I had one other moment with DiCaprio that I thought was just kind of interesting and wasn't necessarily starstruck, but I just am fascinated and I like to study people. And I doing the extra work thing, I don't know how familiar you guys are, but it can be very long days, right? Like acting itself is the term hurry up and wait for a reason, right? You put in a 16 to 18 hour day and you do about 15 minutes of work. And other than that, you're kind of just milling about and whatever, especially if you're an extra and you don't really have any lines and whatever it may be. And so I remember I stepped out to call my dad on the phone. And when you're like holding the door for somebody, but you don't like, you're kind of just like doing it out of like muscle memory and you don't really like quite look or whatever it may be. Well, it ended up being Leo. And it was funny because he's like known to be a smoker or whatever. And he had like an e-cig that was like burning green and he had his lines, but it was like a really interesting moment. So I was going out to just like call my dad on the phone and he was going out to just run his lines, just like any other actor, right? And it was like this crumpled up piece of paper with notes on it and this and that. And I thought that was kind of a cool moment. And he just said, thanks. And I said, no problem, brother. And that was it. And he went out, was running his line. So
that talk to you?
Barely, you know what I mean? But so I thought that was kind of an interesting moment. And then I also had a moment at a film festival where I met Karen Allen, who was she was famous from the Indiana Jones films and things like that. And she's
The Sandlot.
Yeah, it's The Sandlot. Like she was just, and she's actually very good friends with a director of a film that I did a few years ago or whatever. But like she was just, I was starstruck by her in the sense of like just her longevity in the industry and like the knowledge that poured out of her and how sweet she was and how nice she was, and sitting around and just like drinking way too much espresso with her, and like, you know what I mean, just like the story she had about her career and sort of
That's a cool one.
advice. Yeah. And then also had a chance at another film festival to meet another great lady, Rita Moreno.
Huh.
Yeah, the original
West Side Story.
West Side Story, as you know, and she was just, you know, she is like, I believe, well into her 80s now, and I mean, she is just a firecracker and so attractive in so many ways. And just, I remember telling you about this. Just
Yeah.
I couldn't. Again, there's certain people that have that aura where you just kind of want to soak it up, and so anyway, that's what came to mind. So
Pretty cool.
See, those,
pretty
those
cool.
those were pretty cool ones. I mean, I almost feel like I gotta say another one to try to one up, but I'm not. I'm just
I
kidding.
think you got
I'm
me
just
beat.
kidding.
Man. You got me beat.
Nick, what is your best celebrity story? Where you
My
were
best
starstruck a
celebrity
little bit.
story. Oh no, I mean, I met so many celebrities, and nobody
Yeah.
fazed me. So maybe it was my old boss was a celebrity, and he was a little. I was only fazed by him because he was my boss. But I'll keep his name. I'll tell you after.
right,
I'm
do it
not getting
offline.
myself in trouble with this.
Yeah.
We'll call him a shark. So leave it
Okay.
at that. So we'll talk about that afterwards. But
All right.
moving on here, last question for me, and it's for both of you. What in your life or your career would you say is your you know I'm right moment? What I mean by that is a time or place where you wanted to pursue something, you asked somebody for advice, they said, don't do that, that's an awful idea. And you were like, you know what? I'm going to do it anyway. And ultimately, you will see why it is that I'm right.
You're gonna have the better answer, so go ahead.
You think?
Yeah.
All right. So it's not necessarily a specific person or specific instance, but in the broadcasting industry, you hear a lot from professors, from mentors, and so on and so forth, that you can't start your career in New York, right? You have to go to a smaller market. You have to get your experience there, and pay your dues, and become polished, and then you come back to New York. And I didn't really buy into that, and I'm glad that I was lucky that I got my foot in the door in New York, like I said, at SiriusXM. And I feel like if I had gone away, I wouldn't have met and been able to network with so many people in the industry that eventually helped lead me to other opportunities. So there is one person, I don't care, I'll call him out. He'll tell you, Evan Cohen, who still works at SiriusXM and hosts the morning show on Mad Dog Sports Radio. He flat out did say to me once, like when I was it was like right before SNY, like when I was doing some on camera stuff, and he saw my reel and he was like, you're really good. He's like, but you got to go to some small market and get on the news desk, do this. And then like, not that long after that, SNY hired me, and he messaged me and was like, you were right. I was wrong. Like, you didn't have to move. And so, yeah, I don't it was all in good fun, honestly. But yeah, it just happened to work out.
Wow, Evan Cohen. This guy, I guess he's like a reverse Jinx there. The good luck charm. Just killing your reel. He's gonna watch my reel, Joe, and then
Absolutely.
set me off for success.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, it's funny, man. I talked about like being put in a box. I can't say there was any one moment, and Maria's gonna have better input on this than I could. But I mean, I think anytime you say I'm gonna go into acting, there's a lot of eyebrows that are raised. You know what I mean? Anytime you want to say you pursue anything in entertainment, and I'm sure you guys can relate to this as well, whether it's sports media or anything really, where you need to put yourself out there and take a risk, and it's kind of outside of the norm of your typical 9 to 5, and people are saying, what are you doing? What's going on? And are you sure this is the right path? And I've had a lot of that, and it's very similar in nonprofit work as well, because I think people misconstrue what it means to sort of build a career in nonprofit and what it takes. And I had my eyes set on Manhattan as well, just as Maria did in sports media when it came to nonprofit, because that's the largest market we have with the largest events. And it's where we can drive the most impact. And that's really what mattered to me. So I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I want to do this all the way, brother, and I want to be at the tip of the spear, and I want to make the most difference that I can. And I think there were a lot of people that, again, raised eyebrows and were like, you're doing a lot of really different things kind of all over the place here. And I can't say that I was always so sure myself, but I know that it was the right move now. And again, not to be cheesy, it's brought me the greatest things in my life. And it hasn't always been easy, but I think it's just that whole notion, or just that whole idea of if you have something you want to set out to do, a lot of times there's always going to be naysayers, or there's going to be people that are non-believers or haters, or whatever you want to call it. And a lot of times that criticism is misplaced by, unmet needs on their end of things. And it's kind of, you just have to ignore and keep your head down. And it doesn't come without, again, bumps along the road, but it's definitely been a collection of eyebrow raised moments for some of those things. And, I don't regret a second of it.
So
Same.
that was excellent answers there. And now we're reaching the end here. Now, earlier on, Maria, she kind of put you on the spot. She said your graded impressions. I keep hearing
no.
one. I keep hearing one in your voice.
Oh,
and
I'm
me
so
and Joe
sorry.
really want you. We got to hear a Hulk Hogan impression.
Oh my
No,
God.
no, no, no.
I've
Now
never
you
done
can't-
a
no,
whole.
It needs to be like classic.
When you say brother, you sound just like
Oh,
Hulk
well, he
Hogan.
does say brother a lot.
Yeah, the brother thing, it's funny. I think I picked that up from my high school coach. I don't have a Hulk Hogan. I know, you really put me on the spot.
Oh my God,
You really
he's
put
gonna
me on the
kill me.
spot.
I'm sorry.
No, I don't have any
He
like.
does this shit all the time though. Like he'll quote like Gladiator or like, what?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a Hulk Hogan impression on the spot.
I'm trying to think who else you do.
Just say, let me tell you something, brother.
Oh, don't make him.
No, I'm
Don't
trying to
make
think.
it.
Who have I done before? Bill the Butcher, I guess.
Yeah. Oh my
Ooh,
God.
Bill the Butcher. I like that. Yeah.
Yes.
Because I did
Gangs of
that.
New York.
Yeah.
You did.
Amsterdam, I'm New York. There you go. How's that? We'll end it on that. I'll show you the Halloween photos. I go hard on Halloween. So
We love Daniel Day-Lewis over
And
here.
he's cutting himself short. Like he'll do like the whole scene, but it's
That was pretty good. That was pretty good. Absolutely. Listen,
He's gonna kill me.
guys, we had so much fun doing this with you guys. Again, you are our first couple that we've ever had here on the show. Maria,
Sorry we talk so much.
that's exactly why you're here. No qualms from us. Maria,
Okay.
unfortunately, you weren't the first Marino we've had on the show. Like and I,
Okay.
we've had a friend, Mike, with us, but you were still absolutely terrific. Steve,
Yeah.
for the last 26 years, I've had a possibility that I can't get rid of. So I'm going to need to get some fitness advice from you real soon on how to get rid of this. Because for our listeners, for our viewers, Nick and I, we met Maria and Steve in person for the first time when we did the Sportscaster Derby. And I can vouch here, Steve, you are in absolute tremendous shape. So definitely need some advice and tips from you there. But again, you are our first couple, married couple. We thank you for your time. We really, really appreciate it. What we do here is we always give our guests, but now it's guests, the last words. So if there's anything else you would like to share, promote for you guys, by all means, go ahead. And Steve, one last thing. When time permits, or if there's anything that Nick and I can do for you moving forward with the American Cancer Society, let us know. I texted this to you. We'd love to come help you out, volunteer and do an event. So certainly we'll keep in touch there. But again, if there's anything else you guys would like to share, promote, by all means, go ahead.
that is so sweet of you, brother, and I appreciate it. Thank you. What I would say is, so the event this year, the Behemoth event in Central Park, takes place on October 15th. It's called the Making Strides Against Breast Cancer of Central Park. It's actually our 30th anniversary, 30th go around doing it. So it should be a very, very special day. And so if you'd like to get involved, you can go to makingstrideswalk.org/Central Park, or just shoot me a DM, shoot me an email, whatever. You can definitely be involved. And I just appreciate the kind words in the platform, brother. So
I would just say, yeah, thank you for the chance for me to share the screen with this guy for the first time, because I've always wanted to. And I think maybe, I don't know, maybe this will inspire us to do a little bit more together. But yeah, this is super cool for us, I think. So yeah, thanks for letting me bring him on with me.
no, appreciate it. Thanks for letting me tag along. It was fun.
I don't know, Joe. It sounds like there's a future podcast brewing here between this happily married
Maybe.
couple.
I think they need to do a duos reporting for basketball. She does women's, you do men's, right? Do you watch college basketball, Steve? Maybe.
I am a huge hoops fan. It's funny you guys say that. We have talked about it many a time.
There you
About
go.
So
little his and
real
hers
quick,
action,
and like
but-
you can cut this off if it's getting too long, but I would just say what's so interesting is you know, he has a really deep knowledge of basketball history, especially the NBA. And I'm a newer like I became a fan of the NBA and obsessed with it like as more as an adult, but I got really into women's basketball. And when we, you know, the first year that we were together, I remember the day you texted me being like, so like you're into the WNBA, like I don't know much about it, but I really want to like kind of get into it. And that first year, I mean, we watched the women's college championship, we started watching W games, and I'll say this, like, this is what's so cool about it is like we watch NBA together, we watch WNBA together, we watch men's and women's college basketball together, and it's just like it's all ball and it's all great. And so like he admitted like when we met he didn't know that much about it and he wanted to learn, and like that's it. Like,
well,
that's
there's a respect there, right? And being a college hoops player, it's funny. Like, man, I don't know if I should shout her out, but we had an All-American on the women's side that when we needed a 10th, we would call her and she would ball with us. And you know, there was always a respect there, and her and I talk about this all the time. Game is game, ball is ball, and I just appreciate it. And so I appreciate her introducing me and ingraining me into the W more, which is now a budding league. And I feel like with my knowledge, you know, of the NBA, I've kind of been able to help you out with some
Honestly,
historical
yeah.
things. So there's just an
Absolutely.
interesting synergy there. And so you guys
Yeah.
bring up doing a pod. We've certainly talked about it. I would love to, but
Yeah, this is
Time
this
permitted.
is our sales pitch right here. We're gonna.
I
take
think the
this-
name of the podcast, Joe, should be Ball is Married Life.
There you go.
Lock it in.
that
He's
okay.
He's a creative genius. He's
Oh my
able
God.
to think of some things like this on the fly.
Great credit.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That is incredible, actually. All right.
Oh.
Royalties. There we go.
There we go. We'll have Maria's agent contact me to work that out in the details.
Yeah,
But that's going to do it here for this episode of You Know I'm Right. We had a blast here with our guests. So for our special guests, Maria and Steve, for my co-host, Joe, I'm Nick, and this has been You Know I'm Right.